I'm Poonam with SLC TV, Salt Lake City's government access channel, and I'm at Memory Grove, just one of many parks the city maintains. Now, upkeep is vital to the everyday use and enjoyment of parks like this, but sometimes upkeep can also turn into major restoration work. For this week's episode of Capital City News, we'll hear a story about a tornado and a park's revival. And our History Minute is about the city's first amusement park, Lindsey Gardens. Let's start off with our legislative update and look back. At its last meeting, the City Council discussed utilizing a community land trust model to provide long-term affordable housing for residents. The model would use city-owned properties sold at below market rate. The city would retain ownership of the land, while the purchaser would own the structure. The council will hold a public hearing on this item on May 2nd. The council also discussed proposed amendments to the city's electric vehicle parking regulations and expects to receive a proposed ordinance in the coming weeks that would require developers of multifamily buildings, 5,000 square feet or larger, to make 20% of required parking stalls EV ready. And here are some other things that have been happening in the city. For this week's interview, we'll hear from Lee Bollwinkel, Associate Director of Salt Lake City's Parks and Public Lands, about his personal story with parks. We hope you too will share your stories with us as part of our city's needs assessment.
Sterling?
I am in downtown Salt Lake. You cannot believe what has just happened. A tornado has gone through downtown Salt Lake.
And the storm tossed trucks and cars around like they were toys and shattered windows in hundreds of vehicles.
I mean, this is the only time this has happened in 152 years here.
I remember one of my staff calling in and saying, "Hey, there's a tornado." And it's like, no, you're kidding. You know, it's just not that way. And once we got in, started evaluating the damage, we realized we had a mess on our hands, and it took us some time to get it cleaned up. And so this was kind of a park that was a place known for shade. It had a cooling effect, and it was just really a calming place. Coming in, and the first visual was like, wow, what happened? Trees were just sticks. There was debris everywhere. This monument right here, this bell tower, there were trees all the way around it that just laid right down, and the monument stood. The tornado really wiped what was a tranquil park into, just something that was just not what people were used to seeing. The outdoor retailers, they had their annual event. They had the tent set up down off 3rd West, and it actually blew the roof off that. And then it just proceeded up the hill and through the Capitol grounds and destroyed, all the trees there, and then dropped in here. And the path that tornado came through was just up and over this hill. We feel like it almost bounced in the park before actually exiting up and over. So all these trees were on the banks of the slopes of the hills. The trees in the park, we lost them. The day of the tornado, we actually mobilized staff. We were here for 12 hours that day. And it actually took us 12 days with all hands on deck to get the park safe, opened up where the people could start using it. But it was a lot of hours and a lot of staff, from our streets department, public utilities. We had one contractor actually come in and say, "Hey, I want to help," and just donated his time and his equipment just to help us get the park cleaned up. So there was this sense of community and just how can we help. When I see people in our parks, it's kind of a reward of what we do. That's why we do it for the public and for their enjoyment. And to be able to see, these trees that have been in the ground now for almost 20 years, it's nice to see the park starting to come back. I love what I do. I love the challenges of every day. I love working with the staff, and being able to see, the citizens and the public be able to use our parks is rewarding. Right now we have a needs assessment, something that Parks and Public Lands has never done before. And so anyone interested could go on that website and definitely take the survey and tell us what you think. We're looking for your feedback, your comments, and how we can make it better for those that use our parks.
And now it's time for History Minute.
Mark and Bethia Lindsey were English immigrants to the United States, and they emigrated to the Salt Lake Valley by handcart. In 1865, they homesteaded the foothills just outside the city and brought it to life with spring water, growing vegetables, grapes, and currants. They soon saw an opportunity, knowing that the pioneers working hard in the city would need a place for rest. They converted their land into a lush playground, an early sort of amusement park called Lindsey Gardens. There was a baseball diamond, croquet, a dance hall, an ice house, pavilions for gathering, and even something called a whirligig. They charged 10 cents for adults and 5 cents for children, and made even more money selling ice cream and cold beverages. This was the first amusement area in the territory of Utah, and it went well enough for a time, but other attractions soon won out. Eventually, the city took over the property in the 1920s, and many of those amenities were replaced by more standard park equipment. In the 1940s, Lindsey Gardens received a historic marker noting its place in history. Today, it's one of the most popular parks in the city, nestled in the avenues.
That's it for another episode of Capital City News. Thanks for tuning in to stay up to date on all the latest. For SLC TV, I'm Poonam Kumar, signing off from Memory Grove.